I'm Arya Schwartz,
And I'm Rachel Galligan.
and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. This episode, we welcome WNBA champion, a Hall of Famer, and a staple in the basketball world, Lin Dunn. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over at winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. Are you looking to get tickets for the upcoming WNBA season? Thanks to our sponsor TickPick, you don't have to worry. The original no-fee ticketing site and official ticketing partner of the WNBA champion Chicago Sky. Use the link tickpick.com/Winsidr for all your upcoming ticket purchases for the WNBA, NFL, NBA, or any other event. Again, that's tickpick.com/Winsidr. I am so honored to welcome our next guest to the show, a legend of basketball, 2012 Indiana Fever head coach and WNBA champion, 2014 Women's Basketball Hall of Fame inductee, the one, the only, Lin Dunn. Lin, how are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I've taken on a new job here, a new challenge with the Indiana Fever. I think it's been about 3 months, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly how this general manager job works. But so far, I really like it.
You know, Coach, you're a legend in basketball, and your name is synonymous with women's basketball at every level. But I think a lot of our listeners would love to know how you fell in love with the game, kind of what sparked the interest and the competitive spirit.
Well, I came from a competitive family. My father ran track at Vanderbilt. My mother played high school basketball. So I grew up just competing in everything. We had a basketball court in the backyard. We played baseball, softball, football. We even had a high jump pit. Pole vaulting pit, high jumping and pole vaulting in the backyard. So just grew up, we competed at everything. And it was, I guess, in my blood, and that's the type family that I came from. And so I guess when you grow up that way, you can't get past it.
Okay, so you go from the Portland Power in the ABL, then you had a really long run prior to that time, coaching the collegiate level, assistant coach, head coach. Then you make your way to the WNBA as an assistant at Indiana. You go on to be the head coach. You win a championship with the Fever. I know you just had that reunion with the 2012 championship team just a few days ago in Indiana. Can you talk about that championship team?
Well, let me go back and say one other thing. That my family influenced me, but I had a junior high coach and a high school coach that really influenced me for my love of the game, the love of competition, and love of basketball. And so they hugely impacted me. And I think the fact that I didn't get to play, I grew up in Alabama. It was against the law for girls to play high school basketball. And I moved to Tennessee and only got to play 2 years. So I never really got that, enough competition. So that carried over for me to want to create opportunities, for girls and women that I didn't have. And so early on in my career, when I first started coaching in college, it was before Title IX, so I was basically providing these women with teams without any funds. And, I'm saying? I was coaching volleyball, basketball, tennis, teaching PE classes, and not getting paid to coach just because I thought it was something that we needed to do. And so that's kind of how my whole college career went, constantly battling for more opportunities for girls and women, even after Title IX passed, fighting for equity, fighting for equality. And I have to say this, my whole 26 years in college was a challenge, because we were always treated as second-class citizens. And finally, when I got into the pros, the Portland Power, the Seattle Storm, and then later the Indiana Fever, it was really the first time that I started to feel like the women were being treated a little bit better than they'd been treated, historically. And so I love building the team in Portland. I love building the franchise in Seattle. And then, then I came to work with the Fever in the twilight of my career, Pacer Sports and Entertainment couldn't work for better people, couldn't work for better. The Simon brothers, their support for the WNBA. And so I was very lucky the latter part of my career to work with Kelly Crosskopf and the people with the Fever. And then, of course, get to coach Tamika Catchings, who's one of the greatest players of all time. In my opinion, is the GOAT. A lot of people think it's Taurasi, but it's not even close because Tamika plays on both ends of the floor. She defends, she rebounds, she scores. She just does it all. And so to get to coach her and get to be a part of helping her win a championship, which of course she deserved, was a real highlight of my career. And like you said, we had the reunion this weekend, the 10-year reunion, and everybody but one player was back. Gosh, it was great fun. It was reminiscing and listen to them talk and laugh and bring up experiences that happened that I'd forgotten. It was just a really nice weekend.
I have to say, I was living in Indiana at the time, and that was like, if you were in the state of Indiana and you were a basketball player, you were involved in basketball, you were at those Fever games on those Sunday afternoons. Obviously you have Tamika Catchings. That was a really, really special team, a really electrifying moment in the state. Can you talk about that team and what was so special about it?
Well, the number one thing is we were not supposed to win. We were the underdog in every round of the playoffs. And so we were the underdog to Atlanta. We were the underdog to Connecticut. We were the underdog to Minnesota. We did not have home court advantage in any of those rounds. And so that in itself is significant and maybe a little bit overwhelming. Well, then how in the world did you win a championship? And I think the interesting thing was that who we had on our team, the team chemistry, the fact that they all accepted roles, whether they liked them or not. As we went through the whole playoff series, we suffered some injuries, some key injuries. We lost Katie Douglas after she had literally won the Atlanta series for us, and then she basically broke her ankle in the Connecticut series, and Jeanette Poland stepped up and hit 5 threes off the bench, and we won that series. And then Jeanette got hurt, and so then she was out, and then Karima Christmas stepped up. So it was one of those things where you talk about next man up, next person up, and it literally happened that the people on the bench were ready when their name was called. And I thought we had one of the best defensive teams that the league has ever seen. We did a really, really good job. When you say, how did you beat Minnesota when they had home court? It was our defense. And we were great at three-point shooting. We spread the floor, we shot threes, but we defended. And I think if you go back and look at that series, instead of putting Brianne January on Lindsay Whalen, we put January on Simone Augustus. And Erin Phillips was on Whalen, and then Tamika was on Maya Moore. And so we were able to limit Simone Augustus. And that was a very frustrating series for her because she was not able to do what she wanted to do. And that was how we won. Simple.
It's funny. Rachel grew up in Indiana. I grew up in Minnesota. We both have very different memories of that series. I was at that home game that you guys took, and I remember specifically going with my grandparents. Not many Fever fans in the building that day, but my grandpa decided, with no connection to Indiana whatsoever, that he was going to be a Fever fan that day. He did not make the people around us happy.
Well, yeah. But here's another thing when I thought we were going to be in. I don't know if y'all remember this, but Cheryl Reed got really upset and took her coat off and threw her coat. I thought, okay, now we've got a chance. If we can get to Cheryl and she's going to throw her coat, if she's that frustrated, hey, wait a minute now, this is going to be good here. So we stole that game up there at their place. And once we stole that game, it was really interesting, really, really great.
You touched on the ABL a little bit earlier, and that brings up a great topic. A lot of WNBA fans maybe weren't ABL fans or didn't even know what the ABL was, and you hear it mentioned, you see the jerseys on a random occasion here and there. Could you just talk to our listeners, help educate them about what the ABL was?
Well, it was really a grassroots professional league, that Gary Cavalli and cohort started out of California, and really, I loved the way they built it, and unfortunately, I think what they did is they tried to pay the players more money than they actually had available, and so that just wasn't enough resources initially with sponsors and everything, but the whole premise of it was really good. You know what I'm saying? It was independently owned, and there was no big brother like the NBA when the NBA started, the WNBA. So its ability to survive was questionable based on, okay, yeah, we can survive, but we can't pay this kind of money, you know what I'm saying, to Teresa Edwards and, and the stars that we had in that league. But one of the things that I remember about that, when I coached the Portland Power, some of the other coaches in the league, were already settled in, and I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who's longtime Celtics coach that coached the Blizzard, Jones. You know who I'm talking about. Great. I mean, I couldn't hardly coach the game because he's down there on the bench, and he's KC. You know who I'm talking about. I'm trying to coach the game, and I'm like, there's one of my heroes right down there that's won 3 championships with the Celtics, and I'm coaching against him. And I was a nervous wreck because he was down there. But I thought he just like when Bill Laimbeer joined the WNBA, he gave our league some credibility, because he coached and won championships, and that's what Bill did for the WNBA. Here he is a champion, with the bad boys, and now he's come in to build a team with the WNBA. So, but unfortunately, when the NBA decided to start the WNBA, you could see the writing on the wall. There was no way we were going to be able to compete. It's like when the NCAA put the AIW out of business. You just couldn't compete with them. And so eventually the ABL, all those players moved over into that league, and the coaches did too. I was doing the Portland Power, and then later ended up with the Seattle Storm.
Lynn, you've seen a lot of the growth of the league over these past, 25 plus years. How has the WNBA evolved through your eyes during this time?
Well, it's been a real unique experience for me to get to see the whole growth of the WNBA. Like I said, I was in the ABL when the WNBA started, and so I've just seen the whole thing grow. And first of all, kudos to the NBA for embracing this and saying, okay, we're going to have a little sister, to go with our big brother. And their resources, their commitment, can't say enough about David Stern and his desire to do this. Our first president, Val Ackerman, the two of them together were committed to making sure that this league would work. So now 25 years later, I'm really excited about where we are. I think we're to a point where some of the franchises are making money. We still have some that are struggling, as expected with the business. 25 years into the NBA, they were struggling too. So we're also to the point where we may need expansion. We may need to increase the size of the rosters. Enormous appeal. In particular, after all of the attention that the college season gets, that we flow right into the professional leagues, and so I think we're in a good place. I really like the new president. I like her leadership. I think she's very forward thinking, has a business mind. The fact that they were just able to raise that $75 million just like that indicates to me that she knows what she's doing, and which is good. And so I think we made a lot of progress. I would love to see 2 more teams. I would love to see expansion, maybe one in California where where Golden State plays, and there's probably some place here on the East Coast. I hate that we lost Charlotte. Charlotte was a good spot for us at one time. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see us expand.
How do you feel about an expansion team in Tennessee?
Well, I think Nashville is a possibility. Those people in Knoxville would actually drive down to Nashville. There's been some talk about Knoxville, but I do know that Nashville has, they have the Titans, they have the Predators, they've got a major university, they've got a beautiful facility in the Bridgestone Arena where they host the SEC men's and women's tournaments. So I think Nashville, at one time, Nashville had an ABL team, and then we folded. So Louisville's another place that has an enormous amount of support for women's basketball because Jeff's done such a great job there. And the Young Center is a gorgeous facility. So Louisville would be another spot I would think that should be considered.
Let's talk about your current role. Obviously, things did not work out with Tamika, an absolute legend in the franchise. Her tenure was not as successful as I think everyone would have hoped. But can you kind of share what led you back into this role as interim GM and kind of being thrown into this right in the middle of free agency?
Let's go back and say, hey, Tamika was put into a really tough position because now she's trying to rebuild this team without her as a player. And anytime you lose a four-time Olympian, world champion, and honestly did not have anyone to replace her in that franchise, it's a tough spot. So I know how difficult the job is, but it would have been a lot easier if she'd had another Tamika Catchings, on her team. So when Tamika decided, to move on in a different direction with her career and her life, and they asked me to fill in, I was like, well, okay, I'll do it interim. I'll do it for a couple of years until you can figure out who you want in that role. But I said, I've got to figure. I helped Kelly Crosskoff some as a resource when we did trades and free agents and that kind of stuff. I said, I'm just going to get the handbook, and I've got the big handbook sitting here right here beside me, the CBA and everything, how to figure out things, and just kind of hit the ground running, and knew that what we really needed to do was have a great draft, and we needed to reevaluate how do we want to play? Do we play up tempo? Do we want to play fast? Do we value defense? Just do a retool. And then I thought the quickest way to get started rebuilding was to get some great young rookies. Let's build with youth. I like what Dallas has done. That's how Dallas did it. That's how Connecticut did it a couple of years ago. They built around young players, and so I was able to trade some people and pick up some extra draft picks. And the next thing you know, we've got 5 rookies. Here we go. And so, that's going to be challenging. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. But I like their effort. I like their energy. I like their potential. And so we just have to be patient with them and let them grow up. And so, for us to win 2 games early was kind of, whoa, what happened? Surprise there because didn't expect that. And so now we're in the, we played, 7 or 8 games. We're starting to play tougher teams, and it's more challenging.
I want to talk about this draft class in general. And a lot of people may or may not know that you had a stint at Kentucky. You had a chance to work really closely with Ryan Howard, and I know you know where I'm going with this. But from all that you know about her and all the time that you spent with her, before we get into some of the rookies on the Fever right now, I want to talk about just the way she's playing right now and the level that she's playing at. Did you expect her to do what she's doing with this level of production this early on?
So let me make sure that everybody that's listening understands. When I retired in 2014, I retired from coaching, wasn't going to coach anymore. I was just going to be a consultant, and had my own consulting firm, Coaching for Coaches, where I coach coaches. And I hadn't been retired 6 to 8 months until Matthew Mitchell reached out to me and said, I need some help. And I said, okay, Matthew, what do you need? I just need help. Come help me. So he hired me as a consultant to help him with, he had some transfers and had some issues with staff, and then help him get back on track. And the next thing I know, he's saying, I need you on the bench. And I'm like, oh, no, wait a minute, no. He said, just do it for 1 year. And I said, okay, I'll do it for 1 year. And then after 1 year, he said, just 1 more year. And I'm like, oh, no, okay, 1 more year and I'm out of here. And then I went back to consulting. And so I had an opportunity then to be around Ron Howard. She was on the team. So I got to know her in a way that most coaches wouldn't. They were only looking at her from a distance. I know what she's like. I know who she is. I know her mother. I know her family. And so I wasn't surprised at all that she was the number one pick in the draft. I was surprised that people were criticizing her in any form or fashion. And what was it? No motor, lazy. That's ridiculous. What Ron Howard does is conserves her energy and uses it when it's needed. They ask her to play 40 minutes. And so she can't just run around like a wild animal for 40 minutes. She won't have any energy. So I gifted, smart, high basketball IQ, can play the 1, 2, 3, 4. So I was not surprised at all that she was the number one pick, nor am I surprised that she's played so well. She's a once in a lifetime type player. So no surprise to me. Maybe a surprise to other people. Maybe a surprise to some of the media that criticized her. I'm like, why are you criticizing the kid? Mm-hmm. She's really, really good.
Do you think she has the potential to be that next generational type of player?
Absolutely. Not any doubt about it. And here's what she's going to do. She's going to draw a double team. And because of her size and her passing ability, she's going to find the open man. So she's going to be unique in that her ability, that's what they did to her in the SEC for 4 years. They double teamed her a lot, and then she didn't really have another talented player to throw it to, but she does now. So she's going to be a handful. And I can see why Atlanta's so excited about her. Yeah.
Okay, let's take it back to your draft class. I want to talk about NaLyssa Smith first and foremost. I have to openly admit, I at one time had Smith as number one. I quickly switched that after Ryan Howard's play in the SEC tournament. But, we have to talk about Smith. I mean, she's a walking double-double right now. Obviously, right now battling a little bit of an ankle injury, but her production and what she's been able to bring to this team right out of the gate has been phenomenal. Can you talk about her a little bit?
Absolutely. And I agree with you. There were many people, us included, Howard, Smith, Howard, back and forth as the season went along. And so we felt strongly we'll be happy with either one. Whoever falls to second, we'll take, because we think they're both going to have a huge impact on the WNBA. And NaLyssa, even though she's missed the last 3 or 4 games with her ankle injury, is already averaging a double-double against good teams. And so we miss her energy, her defense, her rebounding, just her overall skills. And she's not a guard. She's a 4 or 5. She can play either the 4 or the 5, but she does have a face-up game. And she's really smart. And she's highly competitive. She's worth 15 points to us. So you look at games where we've lost by 10, well, we'd have won that game if NaLyssa had been in there. And unfortunately, in the second Atlanta game, she turned her ankle really bad. And so we've been cautionary because, there's so many games. You don't want to come back, play too soon. And now you're out 6 weeks because then the season's over. So hopefully she'll be back sometime this week. But we're very pleased with her. We're excited to get her. We're going to build this franchise around her.
Let's talk about Queen Ebbo for a second. I mean, she's been really effective for you guys as a rim protector and just somebody who's altering a lot of shots in the paint, grabbing rebounds. Did you expect her to come in and give you this level of production?
What's really interesting about Ebbo is a lot of people overlooked her and her potential. They went to watch NaLyssa Smith and they forgot to notice Queen Ebbo. Well, we went to watch NaLyssa Smith so much that we did notice Queen Ebbo. We noticed her length. We noticed her athleticism. We noticed her rebounding. We noticed her physicality. There were a lot of things about her that every time we talked about NaLyssa, Ebbo's name came up. And I said, well, golly, Bill, let's keep her in the mix because we had those extra picks. And we did research on her. We did an interview with her. And the more we learned about her, the more we liked about her. And so we didn't hesitate to take her at 10. We were thrilled that she was sitting there at 10 and thankful that people didn't realize what type of pro potential she has. And so she is probably, per minutes played, is by far our leading rebounder. When those two, Smith and Ebbo, were in there together, we dominated the boards against really good teams. We do miss, Smith not being in there with her, but we think Queen has a huge upside in this league. Yeah, hard to find players like her.
Another player that's really impressed me, and did it on the big stage too in the NCAA tournament, was Destiny Henderson. And she kind of, in my mind, encapsulates this rookie class in general, because there's such a cool, calm collectiveness from all these rookies. In general, when I look at this class, I'm curious for you, did you expect such confidence coming into it? I'm trying to remember a season of recent time where, the first pick to the 23rd pick or whatever it is came in and has been impactful and has done it with such confidence and just seems ready for the league.
Well, imagine someone like Destiny Henderson, who's just been the MVP of the championship game, leads her team, to that, and then drops to 20. So we had no idea that we might get a chance to draft her. We'd already decided at 20 we would take the best point guard available to help with our depth. And as the draft went along, we kept looking at the pool thinking, golly, Bill, what's going on? And next thing you know, hey, she's falling in our lap. And, and as I said in the press conference afterwards, we didn't draft her, we grabbed her. It's like, wow, she can get to the rim. She's quick as lightning. She can shoot three. So we're thankful she fell, and so we were happy to pick her. And so far, we see that we made the right decision. When the dust all settles, I personally think she was the best point guard available in this draft. Some others went ahead of her, but I don't know if they're better.
I'm curious to know your evaluation and just your thoughts on Emily Angsler and Lexi Hull and everything they've been able to do just these few weeks into the season.
Well, I love Emily. Tough, physical, mean, nasty. You put her and Ebbo together, boy, you better watch out. And so I love her competitiveness. I followed her career at Louisville. I loved how she played, how hard she played. She's another one that you don't realize how many rebounds she gets per minute played, how many deflections, how many steals. She's a garbage player. And so she's my kind of player. She's nasty. She's not going to take any crap off of anybody. And, I might say, hey, you're going to have to deal with Sylvia Fowles. And she may say, who's Sylvia Fowles? Because, Sylvia's so much older than she is. So no fear. Just rugged, physical, tough. Of course, she's still a rookie. She's going to make mistakes. But I really like where these rookies could be this time next year, because we're playing them. They're not, most everybody else's rookies are coming in at the end of the game if they're ahead or behind and get a few minutes. Not our rookies. They're playing against the best teams in the league. And they really competed well the other night at Connecticut. As a matter of fact, I don't think Kurt was happy how well our rookies were playing against what I think the best team in the league, probably up there. And so he kind of took it out on us last night. But again, we didn't have Nalissa in that game. So, we see progress. We see where we're going. But yeah, Emily is my kind of player. And then Lexi is another player that I like because she is a spread the floor, 3-point shooter, high basketball IQ, played for Tar at Stanford. Great size, 6'1", almost 6'2", really defends. She's probably started slower than the other ones because she hadn't gotten as many minutes. And one of the things I think what happened to Lexi is she missed a couple of shots early and maybe lost a little bit of confidence in taking that wide open shot. And when we've told her, if you're open, you shoot it. And so still highly invested in her for the future.
Yeah, I mean, not to go back to Destiny too much, but that one play of her cutting under the rim, playing in the paint against the reigning MVP is just kind of etched into my memory. Now, this is normally the period in the show where we do rapid fire, but really we just have one question for you. In 2012, when you won that championship, how did you celebrate?
Well, I'm not sure we sobered up for a week. You know what I'm saying? It was a kind of a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week celebration because it was just so unexpected and so overwhelming. Everybody in town, the parade, it was just the whole works. You know what I'm saying? So it took a while to come back to earth to settle down. To recover. Because it was just a really really special time, and that's why having that team back this weekend um, was really wonderful. They had a fantastic time. They loved. Some of them hadn't seen each other in 10 years, because it wasn't the teams are never the same the next year, and so it was great to get everybody back. But it's probably safe to say we celebrated for a year.
Coach Dunn, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. Thank you for all that you've done for not just the league, but for women's basketball in general. We are honored to have you on the show. We wish you the best of luck this season, and we're excited to follow along.
Rachel, thank you guys. Go Fever.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.